back, everyone. It's episode 103. Yes, this time I will get the number correct of the Steel Target Paint podcast. I'm here with my best friend and co-host, Steve. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. Jeff, how you doing, sir?
Fantastic. Had a little trouble sleeping last night. Didn't stop me from getting up early at 6:30 and drove to a Friday match this morning. So I got to shoot a five-stager this morning. So that was a lot of fun.
Got up early at 6:30. Now that's spoken like a true retired guy.
I won't tell you what time I went to bed, but it let's just say it was I didn't get a full night's sleep.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear you.
So Steve, we there's been talk around the interwebs, and if people have been listening, we've got a special guest today, but I thought we'd have a little fun. So, special guest, will you please say hello?
Hello.
All right, lock in your votes, everybody. Who's our guest? And what are we talking about? Steve, let them know.
Oh, we have the infamous Zach Jones. How you doing, Zach?
I'm doing good. How about you guys?
Fantastic. For those that have been listening since the beginning, Zach is leading the pack of special guests. This is his fifth time on the episode. I don't know, Steve. You think we got to make him an honorary member at this point?
Oh, probably.
I should at least get a can of paint.
We can give you a discount code. How's that?
Oh, hey, ST Podcast 10.
He listens. Oh, that's
there you
beautiful.
go. Hey,
That's beautiful.
Jeff, cut that out and we can put it at the end of every single podcast.
I love it.
Zach
I love
Jones.
it. Well, Zach, you wanted to come, you and I talked and we talked with Steve and there's been a lot going on in Steel Challenge. So, Steve, you had a really good question on the last episode regarding a lot of the decision making and how it's made. So why don't you ask Zach that question?
Hey, you talking specifically about the Steel Challenge Committee or what?
Absolutely. That's it.
Yeah, let's Zach. Some people are aware that there is a Steel Challenge Committee. You want to kind of give an overview of what the purpose of the committee is, and we'll go from there?
Yeah, sure. So when I got appointed to a seat on the board, the first question they asked me was, you can't do this by yourself, so who would you like to have help you out? So I got put on the spot right off the bat. So the first thing I did was like, okay, well, I started thinking of other competitors and match directors that I knew that were passionate about steel. So right off the bat, I said, okay, well, Jeff Jones, because Jeff and I do a lot of the analysis work together. Then Steve Wright, because Area 5 has historically been the second largest match behind WSSC. Taryn Colvin, or T-Rex, because she runs a lot of the stuff in Mississippi. And then we also have some, like Troy is on the committee and Jake chimes in from time to time. And then this year they said that the vice chair needs to be one of the area directors. So Vice President Russell Fortney is the vice chair for the committee. And then, of course, the president has the option anytime he chooses to sit in, anytime we have a meeting.
Awesome. How often do you guys have meetings?
It really varies. If we have something that's easy to handle, we'll do it through email. If we have something that needs more discussion, then we'll get together on a Zoom call and do it. But we don't have a set schedule. It's just based upon taskings that come out of the board. Like, for example, the limited optics, adding that to Steel Challenge or considering it was a task that came from the board. So that's one of the things that we're working on.
Zach, that's a great segue into our next topic. Can you share some of the stuff and actually maybe tell the folks listening how they can keep track of it themselves?
Well, I actually can, because I asked for permission, and President Yiman Lin gave me the permission to share the current survey results. And again, you had to kind of take this with a grain of salt because the survey is ongoing. But I'll go ahead and give you a quick rundown of the 5 questions. So the first question we asked was, have you shot a steel challenge match in calendar year 2024? And right now it's at 91% yes, 9% no. So the bulk of the people that have answered the survey are actively competing in steel challenge this year.
And Zach, how many people responded to that?
1,565.
Okay, so over 1,500 people respond to that. So right off the bat, we're getting a solid sampling of survey results here.
Well, look at it this way. The survey has gotten double the amount of votes that the Area 5 director election got. So
that's fantastic.
That's
All
crazy.
right.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that is crazy. Okay, so the second one is if limited optics was added to steel challenge to the new division, would you shoot it? This is the identical question that we asked at WSSC. And their survey results right now are running at 75-25. So 75% of the people saying if it was added, they would shoot it, and 25% say if it was added, they wouldn't. And that's based upon a total of 1,541 votes.
And what were the numbers at WSSC that like kind of prompted all this?
It was actually, I don't remember the exact number, but it was, I'd say within 10 or 15, with the more votes leaning towards yes, they would. The funny thing about that was when we were talking to people when I was up at the registration desk, they would say, "Oh, sure, I'm going to say yes because that gives me an opportunity to buy a new gun."
Okay.
So it's like, okay. So it's like,
Hey Jeff, I feel
was
attacked.
his name Steve Foster who said that?
there were several people who said that. And it's like, okay, well, if that's your rationale for adding a new division, then so be it. So, but what it did tell us is that there is interest and that we do need to get a broader audience feedback. And so that's why we came up with the survey questions.
All right. So again, over 1,500 votes, 75% saying, yeah, they would shoot it. What was the next question?
The next one is, if you answered yes to question number 2, would you shoot it with your current carry optics setup, buy a new gun, or already own a limited optics gun? This one, the answers really surprised me. So we've got 1,257 votes. And of those, over 800 say they already own a limited optics gun.
Wow. I can read something into that, but how about the other 2 answers first?
Okay, so use the current carry optics setup, 294 votes. Buy a new gun, which is probably where Steve voted, 138.
I did.
Yep.
I did.
Okay.
I'm one of 138.
You're one of 138.
Well, fantastic. Well, again, we didn't know what was going to happen in these survey questions. We're really trying to help when we came up with them to decide, should this be added as a provisional division, and is there going to be, to be able to drive some success measures out of it. I don't know about you guys. I read into this question that limited optics may be a division that could bring over some USPSA shooters to Steel Challenge. What do you think of that?
Based on the numbers, I would say yes, definitely. We can get crossover.
I am surprised. I am a little bit surprised in a good way of how many people took the survey. That seems like a fair amount of people. And when does the survey close?
Right now, it's scheduled to run through September. But and I made a mistake when I set the survey dates up. When I was reading the bylaws, because I'm trying to get more compliant with doing everything per the bylaws. There's 2 sections of it to deal with provisional divisions and new divisions and things like that. Well, under the new division section, it says that the rules have to be published and things like that, and you have to give a 90-day feedback period, blah, 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 blah. Well, I was thinking that that would also apply to a provisional division, and it doesn't, you know. So, you know, I'll probably discuss with the board this coming Monday, and share the results with them and see what they think. If we should continue it on, or have they seen enough to where, as a board, because ultimately it's their decision, not mine, should we continue to pursue adding this as a provisional division to Steel Challenge?
Well, I think what you should do, if you already haven't, Zach, is just look at the number of votes cast by day, and you'll probably see the votes tailing off. So I'm with you. I don't think it makes sense to keep the survey open nearly as long, but I bet you'll, it's not like you're going to get, another 1,500 people that are going to vote on the last day of the survey. So at least that's what I would imagine.
Yeah, I don't have access to see how many votes we have per day, but yeah, I was thinking about that too, that if we reach a period where, say, we go a week without any votes at all, then we can pretty much assume that everybody who's planning on voting has already voted.
Zach, I want to point something out too for our listeners. If you're not aware, at the beginning of your board meeting, they take a vote on a very specific bylaw provision. I believe it's 10.2. And if that vote passes, they live stream the board meeting. You can find that at uspsa.com or uspsa.org/live. I believe is the link. So if you are interested in seeing what goes on in a board meeting, that would be the place to go see it. And sometimes you get to see Zach's face, although most times he doesn't turn his camera on.
Yeah, I rarely do that. Yeah, that's why on Facebook I have a cat for my profile photo. Yeah, nobody wants to see my ugly mug. Come on now.
All right. So next question.
Okay.
Question number 4.
Question number 4. Okay. If you currently own a limited optics gun, have you shot it in the open division? And we have 1,504 answers to that. So the number 1 is no, that they haven't shot their limited optics gun in open. Next would be yes with 398. And then third is I don't currently own a limited optics gun with 377 votes. And then 163 said I voted no to answer number 2, or question number 2, rather.
Okay, so this again says there's a solid percentage of people that own the gun that haven't shot it in Steel Challenge, and it's because they don't want to compete against open. Regardless of what everybody thinks, I know everybody's going, it fits in open, all that kind of stuff. I was one of those pundits too. But when I read the answers to this is saying, hey, there's a lot of people that be willing to shoot it. They just don't, and they have not shot it in open, and they have guns to do it.
Yeah. I mean, based upon what they're saying, there's a ton of people that already own limited optics guns. And so come on, let's do it, I guess.
Super. And then the last question.
Okay, last one was one that's more just a gee whiz kind of thing, but it's actually proving kind of interesting. And that is, what's your primary role at a Steel Challenge match? So we've gotten 1,539 votes on that. And by far, at 81%, or 1,248 votes, is competitor. Then 151 votes for range officer, and then 140 for other staff, which is, your match director, RM stats, things like that. So, what we're seeing is that the people that are reading the survey are the bulk of them are competitors. And so we're getting the feedback from our target audience. One thing I don't know is if this is only Steel Challenge people that have voted or if it's some combination. So, you know,
It's
the
kind of tough to
results are
tell.
what they are.
You'd have to combine the exact answers of the users with what they've been doing this year. Take a lot of work to do that, I would think.
Yeah, I mean, just based on the numbers, it shows there's a lot of interest in it. And, so we will obviously take that into consideration.
Yeah, I'm sure there's some USPSA predominantly that shoot that would have answered that, but there have been times where there have been surveys in the past. I don't know. It was been a couple of years ago. There was a rules question or something like that to allow something in USPSA. I read it. I abstained from the survey because I didn't feel as though that I was in a good position to provide feedback in a survey. So, yeah, it'd be interesting to see how many predominantly USPSA shooters that never really shoot steel that would have responded to the survey. That's interesting.
Yeah, we might be able to get Rick to do some kind of back end analysis on it and see. But again, trying to get time on his plate to get things done. I don't know if you guys will listen to Troy's DNROI podcast. They're having some issues with getting some of the Steel Challenge seminar stuff. Like one of the options under that is if you are currently a USPSA certified RO and have the Steel Challenge endorsement, you can voluntarily give up your Steel Challenge, your USPSA. Who would dare give up their Steel Challenge one? What am I thinking?
Blasphemy. That's
Yeah,
just blasphemy.
I know, man. We got to delete that part. But if you want to give up your USPSA CRO or RO status, you can. And that's one of the things that they're currently working on, is getting all the the coding and stuff done to do that. Because next February, when I had to renew my certification, I'd rather take 25 or 20 Steel Challenge only questions than 20 USPSA and 5 Steel Challenge ones.
Yeah.
Well, I will say this, we were very fortunate at the Wyoming Antelope Club to have Dan Bernard teach the first ever Steel Challenge RO class. And I've already seen a huge benefit in the matches, and there's been at least 4 I've been to since that class, where you've got new people who are stepping up and helping out, and it's no longer 1 or 2 people that are running shooters, but you've got 3 and sometimes 4 on a squad across all squads helping run, and it really makes a difference.
The more you have, the better.
Yeah.
One of the things that they mentioned on the podcast, on on Troy's podcast, is that at the CMP, which I know is a hugely popular destination for Steel Challenge matches, the week of, I don't know the exact date, but sometime right before the next nationals that's going to be there, Troy's going to be on hand, and they are going to have a 1-day seminar at that range. So if you're going to be in town, or if you're local to CMP, and you want to get your Steel Challenge RO, that would be a great time to do it.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm pretty sure I saw on Facebook. I know there's going to be a class in, I think, September at Volusia.
Oh, yeah. Greg
And
Kiers's range.
Yep. And I think I'm not sure. I'm pretty sure you can find on the website where the seminar, here we go, find NROI seminars.
Yeah,
So
they're on the web.
yeah, so I'm looking here. Yep, Volusia 922 SCRO, East Texas Rifle and Pistol Club on October 5th is Steel Challenge RO. December 14th at Kentucky is the SCRO. So
cool.
they are, yeah, there's and let's see, that's Yeah. So there's 14 classes that are listed here between RO, CRO, and SCRO, and 3 of them are for Steel Challenge. So I think that's really good. And again, it's that opportunity for I tell you the one thing I learned as a USPSA RO, and I believe that the same thing holds for a Steel Challenge RO, is having a deeper understanding of the rules gives you the best ability to be a better shooter. Knowing what you can do when a miss is called, when you know the rules, as opposed to just taking it, things of that nature, it's well worth it. And, you know, again, at that local level, the more people that can help out, the better it's going to be.
Absolutely. I mean, you know, that way you don't run into where one of those things where, oh, well, at my home range, we do it this way. And at, you know, your a tier 2 or tier 3 match, or even at WSSC, we do it, you know, strictly by the rules. And they're like, I never had to do that at my home club. Well, you should have been.
Yes, exactly.
Hey, Jeff, I just want to point out that it took 25 minutes for Zach to mention that I have a home range. Well, at least that's what he meant.
Well, home club, home range, same thing. Yeah. Yeah, Steve's had some matches at that range, or at least one.
I have.
Well, so finishing up on the LO, granted the survey's not over, you've got to go back to the board, and it is a board decision. You're merely making a recommendation. Are you leaning towards a recommendation decision?
Well, yeah, I mean, based upon the survey results, it's clear that the membership want to have it. And it's also clear that it shows that I'm human and I make mistakes like every other human does, because when we discussed this for the USPSA side, they asked me about, you know, well, should we do this for Steel Challenge? And my answer at that time was no. Well, here we are 2 years later, and it's clear that I should have said, oh yeah, we need this. And, you know, so just goes to show, even people who think they know everything don't.
Well, I don't necessarily think it's a mistake, Zach. I think, you know, your gut feel was not to do it, and you know, as a responsible person of the organization, you and the committee said, hey, let's find out if it's something people want to do.
Yeah,
and
that's
God
what I meant to
forbid, we
say.
asked the membership to see what they wanted, and here we are. So yeah.
No, that's it.
Yeah,
That's what I meant. Yeah, that's what I meant.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
But what is not fine, Zach, is I haven't seen the survey for my rimfire revolver yet. I just want to know when that's coming.
Oh,
maybe.
I knew you were going to go there, and I told Jeff that
Steve,
I'm going to.
there's a lot of static, Steve.
Yeah,
we didn't get that.
Yeah,
You
yeah,
break it up.
yeah. You did the
All right,
Mr. Roboto thing again. Now I tell you what I think
let
I'm
me know
going
how
to
many
do.
signatures I need. I'll come ready.
No, I tell you what I think I'm going to do. It's for the 2025 WSSC. I'm going to add a special category that says rimfire rifle, or I'm sorry, rimfire revolver. And if you shoot it, then you sign up for that category. And that will give us some idea of how popular that pistol really is.
All right. Challenge accepted.
Okay.
All right. Well, again, if you haven't been on the internet, which,
You're
you know, a
smart.
lot of people aren't, specifically Facebook. I'm sure it's all over Enos as well. The committee has made recommendations for peak time stage changes. And I want to read something because I had a very, very fair and honest question get asked of me on one of my posts. And it says, what's the history of the classification system? And to be honest with you, I didn't really know. So I Googled it, and this is off of the USPSA site, where the classification system first started. In fact, for years, USPSA owned Steel Challenge and there was no classification system. Correct, Zach? Weren't you the impetus for getting a similar classification brought over into Steel Challenge?
Expanding. There was a classification system, but it was based upon your best time for centerfire handguns only.
Ah, okay.
So with the introduction of the additional, the
Divisions.
long guns and rimfire and stuff like that, we decided that we needed to, have a different classification system where you can be classified in each firearm that you shoot.
Cool. So I'm going to read this.
But hang on before you go though. Was it just for the center fire at any match, or was it at the World Speed Shoot?
Any match.
Okay.
Yeah.
It was a horrible classification system. I'm sorry. Go ahead, Jeff.
So I'm going to read this as is, but I want you to replace in your minds when you hear it, replace USPSA with Steel Challenge, replace maximum hit factor with peak time, and replace hit factor with stage time. Okay, so what is it? The USPSA classification system dates back to 1985, when then President Dave Stanford proposed a system of classifying a large number of competitors from a common database. Members shoot USPSA classifier stages at matches, and the scores are submitted to USPSA and added to their member profiles. Next section is hit factors and maximum hit factors. Members are awarded a class based on a series of percentages that are calculated for them. Each percentage is the score, hit factor, they shoot on a specific stage divided by the maximum hit factor used for that stage. The maximum hit factors are derived from the scores of the top shooters. And then it goes on to discuss, what the different breakdowns are, which the percentages are exactly the same as we use. We use the same ones for DCBA, Master and Grandmaster. And then it talks about earning a classification, which is slightly different in USPSA. I think the real takeaway here is, this was developed back in '85. It's been used in USPSA since then. And most importantly, that last sentence, the maximum hit factors, or in this case, the peak times, are derived from the scores of the top shooters. So every year, Zach and I will get together. And before there was a committee, it was just Zach and I. And now we have the committee, so we make sure that they're involved in reviewing what we do. But we will take all the scores from the last WSSC. And let's clear that up. Zach, why are we only using the WSSC?
That's the one match that's run by USPSA. So we have, myself and Troy and everybody on hand, and the stages are set up, laser leveled and everything, and they're as good as we can possibly get the stages. So it's the one range where you've got USPSA running the match. You've got ROs that are some of the best ever in the world running stages. And it's the best match that we can possibly put on to collect this kind of data.
Excellent. Okay. So we will go through, and in the Steel Challenge rules, I believe it's in the rules, isn't it? Because we don't necessarily have our own bylaws. I think it's in the rules, isn't it?
It's either a rule or a policy.
Policy.
Yeah.
That there's a review every year. So every year.
And that's key.
Yes.
That there is a review. There doesn't have to be a change. There simply has to be a review. There's been, for example, during COVID, we did our review, presented it to the board, and the board said, okay, that's fine. We'll see you next year.
No changes were made.
Yeah.
And we had changes. There were adjustments to the peak times that were going to happen that year. And the board came back and said, no, we're going to leave them as is. And Zach and I went, okay, we did our job. They did their job. Move on. So we have an algorithm, and it's changed over the years. If you want to go back to probably what, 4, 5, 6 years ago. The algorithm was very different than it is this year. Back then we had data going back to 2009 World Speed Shoots, back to 2009. And we would take the top 10 unique times shot for a specific division for a specific stage. And for those that are going, what are you talking about, Jeff? It's very simply, take a guy like BJ Norris, who is probably the best limited shooter ever in Steel Challenge. He owns 8 of the best times. We did not want the peak time to be based on how well BJ shoots it. So that's why only his best time was taken. And as all of his other times were then eliminated. And so we would take the top 10 and do that. And Steve, you probably remember about 5 years ago, we kind of had the same uproar with some of the divisions. Do you remember that?
Yep. Oh yeah.
People were getting faster. I tell the story all the time. 2017 U.S. Steel Nationals was very fortunate to get third in PCCO. I shot a 75. Nowadays, that's what? Maybe top 25?
You'd at least have to scroll one page on practice score.
So
That's harsh.
Well, just facts, just facts.
Mine's easy to find. Just scroll to the bottom.
Oh, that's funny.
So this year, the algorithm was Zach. You want me to tell him the algorithm, or you want to tell him?
You can tell.
Okay, so the algorithm this year. Go ahead, Steve. Go ahead. Ask your question.
We'll back up though for just a moment, because I think we lost a part of the history. So there was the old classification system that Jeff outlined, top percentage of the shooters, but then it was really based on the centerfire score. And then, in my opinion, one of the best things about Steel Challenge that happened was the implementation of the modern classification system, which, if I recall correctly, it was July 1st of 2017. And that's where it went down to the division level, and it just really, really changed the game. So at that time, Jeff, you want to pick it up from there, how those were determined, and then go into the recent change that happened this year?
Yeah.
We should really skip
pretty-
that period of time because that's the dark ages.
No, it's good though
Yeah.
for people to understand where
Yeah.
it was at, where it came from, and where it's at today. Because the important part to me is that, hey, look, if things are happening a certain way, and it's there's an evolution that has happened and did happen and will continue to happen, right?
Right.
Well, and this also kind of leads into, let's just say that the board does approve, adding limited optics. At some point in time, we're going to have to come up with peak stage times for that division. And, so mistakes were made when we were coming up with some of the initial peak stage times, and and I'm air quoting, it was too easy to make GM in some of the divisions. And so, we want to make sure that should limited optics get adopted, that we do a very good job of coming up with the right set of PSTs for that.
So I'm looking up right now on practice score. And Steve, to answer your question, I don't know how the initial numbers were determined. For we'll call them the low ready divisions.
Sure.
So I don't know that, but I'm going back here. Here we go. 2018. Okay. So we're going back just 6 years. It's not that far. Okay. Want to take a guess at what won RFRO?
In 2018?
Yeah, 6 years ago.
It was probably
That was out in California, probably
No, it was
70.
18 would have been the second year at CMP.
Oh, yes, because 16, 17. No, 18 would have been the first year at CMP.
18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24. I thought this was the 8th year. Was this the 7th year, Zach?
The 7th year. Yeah.
18
Yeah.
was the first year.
Yep.
Look at me with my big brain. I think I'm trying to think who won that.
Ethan Inacondo won it.
Oh, he probably a 68, 69, maybe somewhere in there.
It was a 64.
Oh, okay.
64. Okay. Now that's RFRO. Okay. What do you think RFRI was?
Oh, it was probably Colby. So it's probably 68, 69, somewhere in there.
It was Cole Bush with a 68.
Really?
Yep.
Where's Colby at?
Let's see here. Let me go back to that list. We got Cole. Chris Barrett was second with a 75.
Wow.
So
This Stephen Foster was third with a
gee.
76.
Holy cow.
Doesn't look like Coley shot it this year.
He was
For whatever
running
reason.
from me.
Now here's just to tie out PCCO. Again, one of the super fast stages. I'll give you huge props if you can guess who won the 2018 PCCO World Speed Shooting Championships.
Casey Eusebio.
Oh, huge props, my friend. Very good. With a 67.
I could have just about told you that. And the reason why was in I think it was 2017 at the Alabama State match, I shot a 67-40. And I remember talking to Casey about it, because at that time, that was one of the fastest times shot. And so he put in some work, and I gave him mad props for shooting that kind of time.
Yep. So here you go. I mean, look at this. This is just 6 years ago. And there's huge adjustments that are being made. Like these aren't even match GM times that we're winning it. So that's why we do the analysis. That's why we look at this stuff to keep things in line. And I remember back in 18, 19, possibly even 20, where we made the changes and the response to the changes was very similar to what we're hearing now.
Let me offer just a little bit of insight, having been involved a little bit of that back then with the times, and I think it was right about that time. Maybe it was, what year didn't we change? Was it 2020 you were saying?
I think it was 21 due to COVID. We didn't do a change.
There was
I
one
could
of
be
those
wrong.
years.
I could be wrong. I don't have
know.
the history. I don't have the history of our changes.
It all gets a little bit fuzzier with age, right? But it was either 19 or 20.
I am retired, Steve, so you got to bear with me. In fact, it's
I know.
almost 6 o'clock, so I got to go to bed.
What people don't know is that there was a lengthy conversation that was had with Jeff, and Zach, I'm not sure if you were involved with it or not, but we had Mike Foley. It was before one of the podcasts, and again, Zach, you may have been there for the discussion, but we had I was pretty emphatic about it, just questioning, kind of what we're doing, how we're doing it, because what was happening at that time, and I think it kind of rolled over a little bit to where we're at today. But during that time, as Jeff kind of alluded to a little bit with some of the, 76 taking third place in the world speed shoot, rimfire rifle iron. Yeah, that would have been scrolling down 3 pages this year, But but my question to Mike was what was the intent around the peak times, and then was there a target percentage of grandmasters? And it could be extrapolated just a little bit differently, but in USPSA, it's right around 95%, right? So it seems like, from an outsider looking in, that the goal is to have not more than 5% or right around 5% of people in a division USPSA as a grandmaster. At least at the time, that was my understanding. Again, this is a non-USPSA shooting guy. I've shot it a handful of times, but definitely not my core competency or wheelhouse. And so I asked that of Mike, and at the time, I think rimfire pistol open or rimfire rifle open was one of the biggest sports or one of the biggest divisions, and rimfire rifle open was getting really, really quick. There was a lot of folks to what Jeff was just saying that, hey, we're shooting in the 60s, and, Ethan, my man, shot, in that kind of like a mid 60. And I think the next year after that, Mackenzie Bragg won it. It was either a 63-45 or 63-50 or 64-50, somewhere in there. And so that was now kind of like the new benchmark then when a couple of folks shot sub 60s. I think it was 4 years ago, maybe, when I broke 60, but Grant had done it and Chris Barrett had done it. But my point at that point in time is that the peak times were too high. If you wanted to have 5% of the people shooting a particular division as a grandmaster, I think at the time it was right around, I don't know, Zach or Jeff, you can probably check me on this, but it was right around 10 or 12% of all the classified shooters in rimfire rifle open were a grandmaster. And what happened is that I think we lowered rimfire rifle open. Again, I'm doing this off of memory. Again, this was a few years ago. Is that it got lowered by, I think it was 4 seconds or something like that.
You nailed it.
And
I was going to say 4.
Yeah, and I told Mike and maybe you, Zach, and definitely you, Jeff, I said that 4 seconds needs to be 8 or 10 just based on the speed and pace of the game. And, Mike cautiously shared that, hey, it's too much change at once, and, there's not really a percentage, and so on and so forth. But I think what happened, Jeff, from my perspective, is you've got a lot of folks that, and it's a great thing for the sport, because I'm the same way. I know, Jeff, you are as well, and so on and so forth, is we've got, we're shooting against other people, but we're shooting against ourselves because we want to increase our classification and so on and so forth, meaning, hey, I'm a master in single stack, and at some point I want to become a grandmaster and so on and so forth. And what I think at the time is it was quote unquote easier to become a grandmaster at that time when the peak times didn't move quick enough. And I don't want to get necessarily to the end of the book, but I think what's happened now, whether the process that was used was changed and so on and so forth, but I think that the peak times in some of the low ready divisions, again, we could argue, well, this stage is this for rimfire pistol iron compared to that stage for rimfire rifle open. I think the intent is that the overall bar has gone down to probably where it should have been if there would have been more assertive changes or the proper changes, 5-6 years ago or whatever that was.
Sure.
Yeah, we've
I
been
think
too
the only thing I
conservative.
would, the one thing I would change is that I do remember that conversation, and we can go back, and I am fairly certain that Mike said the 95% is not about getting 5% grandmasters.
Correct.
That's not where
Correct.
that came from.
Correct.
It is you could look at it and go, we'd have to go back to Dave Stanford in 1985 and go, where did you come up with these to get the real answer? And you're always going to have, especially in USPSA and in Steel Challenge, those divisions, or those classifications are only going to grow. That top one, you can only add to the GMs. You can't take away unless you go through a classification recertification. And Zach will touch on that in a bit.
Yeah, I got a question for you guys first.
Sure.
Jump into your time machine, go back to December 27th of 2023. And
I ate a peanut butter and jelly sandwich.
okay. And yeah. How many GMs do you think we had on that date across all 13 divisions? You can
Across all
do a
13.
number or percentage.
I don't even know.
14%.
Well, across all divisions,
All 13.
6%. 6%.
4%.
But if you look at the low ready divisions, what's rimfire rifle open?
I'm not going to tell you that yet. I'm not done.
Because I haven't found that number yet.
No, I literally am looking at it right now. Okay, how many masters do you think we had, or percentage of masters?
Well, if it's 4%, I'll go
10.
12.
5. Okay. A class,
Now I got to go like 30.
10,
No,
10.
I was gonna go
10.
10 or 15.
Okay, B class,
35.
42.
close, 30.
30.
C class,
38.
I'm thinking bell curve. So yeah, I'll go around 42 again.
40. And D class was 12. I won't make you guess that one. Okay, so you can see combining all divisions, we've got about 4%, or we had 4% at the end of calendar year 2023 that were
Okay.
GMs.
Sure.
Okay, talking about your low ready specifically, we'll start with PCCI and go across. So at PCCI, we had 116, which is 15%. So obviously that's high. PCCO, we had 265, which was 5.8%. RFPI, we had 106, which was 3.2%. RFPO, 166, which was 3.2. RFRI, we had 178, which was 11%. And then RFRO, we had 326, which was 6.1%. So yeah, the low
They all
ready
track
ones,
higher. They all track higher than the average.
they do. I mean, no, I mean, RFPO is below, and
Okay.
so is RFPI, but you know,
Well,
Well, you said 4%. They're
4% GMs. RFPI was 3.2 and RFPO were 3.2.
okay.
But
at one point in time, the rimfire rifle open percentage of GMs was over 10%. And I think what has happened though, it's people, and I think Jake's talked about this before, and I know Mike has in the past, is every 3 years, and Brian Connolly, we talked about this a couple of weeks ago. You know, every 3 years, not the whole group changes, but there's new people that come into the sport, and then people that end up leaving the sport. So I think that's my estimation.
churn.
That's why
There's a
that
churn.
percent, that percentage came down.
yeah, and you know, again, these are 7-month-old numbers at this point in time.
Sure.
So getting back to this whole thing. So we started looking at the algorithm, and Zach and I got to tell this funny story, Zach. Last year we were coming up with the numbers and we were going back and forth. And Zach's like, let's just make the peak times the world record. The 100% peak time is the world record for that stage, for that division. And I went, okay, let me go see what that would do. And so I ran some numbers and I came back to Zach and I said, well, based on the numbers I have, we'd have 3 GMs. He goes, 3% is not bad. I said, no, not 3%, 3. And so that was immediately, it was a good exercise to do. And then we realized that's not going to work.
Yeah.
So
And that's the thing too, is that we don't just do one thing. We do it and then we say, okay, well, how do things look? And then we do it again. Do we change, we tweak things, you know?
And so we have an algorithm that we use, and the algorithm is very straightforward. And anybody who wants to try to do it themselves, it's very simple. For every GM time shot, meaning the time was 95% or higher of the peak time, it's an average. So we would go to RFRO, we would find all the times that were faster than 95% of the current peak time, and we would take the average.
For a given stage.
For a given stage,
it's
for each
stage
stage. That's right. It's
specific,
stage based.
and then
Very
the
good.
average is rounded to 2.
Yep. 2 decimal places.
Yeah.
We did have another element that we looked at, which is there had to be at least 5 people that did that. Because you could have a division where one person did it and the average would be their score, and we'd be saying we're adjusting it to based on what one person did. And then we look at that, and this year, for those that are in the know, you can remember back a number of years ago, all the stage times were at half seconds. And then a few years ago, we changed it to quarter-second divisions. And Zach and I, as we were doing this, we kind of kept going back and forth because, do we round it up? Do we round it down? And we both said, why don't we just keep it to the hundredths? We record our times to the hundredths. Let's just keep the peak time to the hundredths. And we went, yeah, that makes sense. So that's why you'll notice that the new peak times that have been proposed, you're going to get times like 9:57, 12:62, 10:15. Because that's what the average says. There's no need to round it. That's basically what we do. Zach, you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, it's not any secret sauce or anything like that. It's very simple. If you shot, greater than or equal to 95% of the current peak, then we averaged your time. There's cases where we might have looked at something and said, that's such an insignificant change, we won't do it. Or if for some reason this year the average was slower than the current peak stage time, we excluded that. Because we historically have never raised a peak stage time. It's always been cutting time.
So as we're doing
because
this
I think
go ahead, Steve.
Yeah, I was just going to say, well, a couple things. One is I would imagine due to the popularity or, the reduction in the center fires, I would imagine that some of the peak times in center fires would have went up instead of down. Is that a good conclusion I just drew, or is that not correct?
Actually, your assumption that center fire is down is incorrect. It's not.
I'm sorry. But the people that have shot it though, like at this World Speed Shoot, and I could go through some names, but if you looked at the top people that shot open,
okay, I see what you're saying.
Compare that to a couple of years ago,
right,
to the top people that were shooting open. You know what I mean? Yeah.
Again, that's when you look at a stage like, or a division like carry optics, there's more changes that are happening than there are in open, because there are people who are getting GM times shot in carry optics and not as many in open. And we do have a change in open this year on one of the stages. I believe it's accelerator and or speed option. There are changes that we've recommended. Many more of the stages in carry optics have been recommended for change. And here's a real telling thing, okay? I'm going to give you the number. 149 people shot rimfire rifle optic this year at Worlds. How many people do you think shot a GM time on 5 to go? Out of 149.
There's 149 competitors, but how many of those were grandmasters?
Doesn't matter, because we don't care if you're a grandmaster. If you're a B shooter
No,
and crank out a grandmaster time, it counts towards the calculation.
Why do you have to bring up Tanner Gibson? Hey, Tanner, how's it going? That was last year. He had the fastest B-class PCCO time I've ever seen in my entire life. Anyway, I would say 5. No, hang on. I'm gonna
47.
holy cow.
47 out of 149 people shot a GM time on 5 to go.
So let me back up for just a moment then. What was the percentage of Grandmasters and Rimfire Rifle Open December 27th, 2023? 6%?
Rimfire Rifle
Ish.
Open, you said?
Yes, sir.
Hang on, let me open that spreadsheet again.
Well, let's assume until Zach gives us the exact number at 6%. How much time was cut from the
6.1%.
Okay, 6.1%. How much time was cut off the peak time for Rimfire Rifle Open this go around?
That's a good question. I'm gonna go find that document.
It's 63.5 or so is the peak time now somewhere. Again, I'm doing this from memory.
Sure.
It's 4 seconds probably.
Yeah.
It was 4 and change, somewhere around there. Yeah. Here, peak time stage summary report. There it is. RFRO. There it is. Yeah, from 67.75 down to 63.57. So what's that? 418
Okay.
difference?
Now, with that change, what percent of those Grandmasters would have been still Grandmasters?
It's a number. It's a number that's very difficult to determine, and I'll tell you why.
Sure.
You don't have every person shooting every stage. Remember, you only have to have 4 stages to get a classification.
Yeah. Yep.
So you don't have everybody shooting every stage, so you can't really determine, well, I need to use the new, roundabout number, but don't use the new speed option for this person. Very difficult. And to be honest with you, the 6% doesn't matter. The 6% of GMs, it's not about trying to get a specific number of people who are GMs, because if it was, then what we would end up doing is not use the world speed, which would mean a rule change.
Sure.
And we would go in and say, okay, what are people doing, in say the top 20? Let's take the top 5%. The bottom guy's the peak time, or is the 95th percentile of the peak time. That's not what we do. And again, not everybody shoots every stage. Your current peak times, your current percentage is based on current year plus 2 years. So stuff that I shot back in 2020 when I was a younger man isn't counting towards my percentage. It helped build.
Can we bring that to the committee for? Let's bring that to the committee for a vote. I would change that tomorrow. I would go back to the beginning of time. No, I hear you. I think all of this has been really good discussion. I know it's helped me understand where we're at. We know the games get faster, but I think we've got one or two elephants in the room that I think we need to address. And I think that is now there has been some folks out on social media, and I got some texts and phone calls, and a lot of people ask me, hey, what do I think? And I did openly share with people that I do think that peak times have been too high, especially in, a lot of the low ready divisions. I think the pistol divisions probably weren't as far off because we got a little bit more history of people shooting rimfire pistol open, because that was the quote unquote, side match. So there's a lot of pros shooting that and all that kind of stuff. But what do we say here? What are the thoughts around to people that, hey, this peak time was too drastic, and we think that it's our opinion or somebody's opinion that it's going to discourage shooters from shooting this sport? Who wants to field that one?
I have an answer, but maybe Zach's would be more appropriate.
Well, okay. One of the things that we kind of didn't really go into very much was like the range that we used before. In the past,
Yep.
we used the 95 to 110. So if your score was within that range, then we made our recommended changes based upon that. So that's a very conservative approach. So one of the things we did this year is we did a total of 4 different analyses or analyses or whatever the plural is of analysis is.
I like that one. Use analyses.
Okay, analysis is.
Hey, you say that too many times, we're gonna have to censor you.
I'm
Yeah.
telling you, yeah.
Beep.
Okay, we crunched the numbers multiple times. Let's go with that.
Very
So
nice, Mr. Jones.
we did the standard 95 to 110. Then we said, okay, well, what if we bump it up to 115? So we did another run with that. Then we said, okay, well, that gives us this many more points of data to use. Then we went up to 150%, and that gave us even more data to use. And then we calculated if we remove the cap, if we take everything that's from 95 up, the difference between capping it at 150 and everything was a total of 7 times. And it just so happened that 5 of those 7 came out of PCCI. So in the end, we decided to take all the times that were greater than or equal to 95%, and then averaged them, rounded to 2, and so forth. And that's how we came up with the numbers. And we do recognize that, yes, they are dramatic in a lot of cases. The way to look at this, though, is not that anyone is being punished or that we don't like anything or whatever. It's a correction that needs to be made. There's 2 ways of getting there. One is to take the approach that we've gone with, and that's essentially, we'll call it rip the Band-Aid off. You know,
That's what I was
everybody
gonna say.
takes the cuts, and then we go and keep track of it from here. The other one would be to go back to a more conservative approach. But, if in the end we're going to end up cutting, 8 seconds off of a particular division, we could do it, X number of seconds over X number of years. That's one way of getting there. But, then you get the crowd that says, oh my God, you keep changing this year after year after year, where
Sure.
what if we take and just make the one dramatic change now, and then going forward, just have tweaks here and there. Obviously there's no guarantee that's what's going to happen, but that would be the best course of action. And, don't think that just because we have provided the data to the board and the board has approved what we've provided, that we've stopped and said, okay, we're done. We don't have to worry about this till after 2025 WSSC. Jeff and I today spent probably 4 hours,
It's
on
when
my lunch.
when I'm driving home from matches, I call Zach so it makes the drive go better.
Right. And I did this on and I'm air quoting, my lunch break. We talk about different things, and we've run additional, we've done additional counts today, like, okay, how many people fall within that 95 plus range? Okay, and we got a series of numbers for every division and every stage. Then we said, okay, how many people shot faster than the current peak stage time, the 100% peak stage time? And we came up with another set of numbers, and we looked at it. And one of the things that we've done is in the past we said, okay, you've got to have at least 5 people that fall within that range before we consider a change. So maybe that number's too low. Maybe going forward, we need to use 10 or maybe 15 or something like that. Or, some percentile. The problem with percentile is it varies based upon how many competitors are in a division. So a fixed number like, 10 works well.
Yeah, 50% of the single stack shooters shot a grandmaster time on 5 to go at this last world speed.
Sure.
There were 10.
Yeah.
So
But
percentages can be very deceiving.
right. And then conversely, though, you look at, I think it was rimfire rifle irons, or one of the rimfire divisions on Roundabout. It was, 50% or so.
That's exactly right. Half the competitors in rimfire rifle iron shot a grandmaster time on Roundabout. And they're like, okay, Jeff, how many people? 56.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
So I mean, that tells us
half the field shot a GM time on that stage.
Yeah, that again, that tells us that current PST is too low, and we've got to make cuts. So, it looks dramatic. People don't like it. I mean, I've gotten all kinds of feedback. I've gotten people say, I don't like it, but I understand why you're doing it, and you in your position, you have to make difficult decisions, and thank you for doing that. And then I've had others saying, you're blankety blank, no good, blankety blank, 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 blank.
I hear that a lot. So, but maybe that's just me.
Well, it's just you.
Yeah, Jeff, it's definitely you.
So, people are like,
For everybody out there nodding, yes, we agree. I'm a jerk.
Yeah. And the people say, I'm going to quit shooting steel challenge, I'm going to go shoot rimfire challenge, or I'm going to go shoot this or that, or name your sport here. If that's the case, if this one change drives you out of the sport, I'm sorry to see you go, but I would encourage you to think long and hard about it, and decide what's important to you.
I'm sorry, Zach, to cut you off. All I can think about is we've got pickleball paddles with the Steel Challenge logo that you send to these people. I'll help you out. Free engraving. I'm just.
Well, I think. Listen, I get. Maybe there's something that a lot of people don't realize too, and so I want to bring it up here. If you've attained a specific classification, or attain it before these changes go into place, should these changes be finalized that we've presented, you will not lose that classification. Part of the presentation Zach made to the board was that after these changes, he's going to drop, his percentage will drop below his current class in 6 divisions.
I think
five
it's
divisions. Okay,
five or
five.
6. I don't know.
For me personally, I did the math on myself. 6 of my GM classifications will drop below 95%. And I'm keeping all of my GM classifications because I earned them. Regardless of whether the times are easy or not, I earned them. Now, should at some point I choose to say, I want to be more competitive against my peers, I can put in for a classification request, and Zach looks at those, and it's a very systematic process. Correct, Zach? There is no feeling about it. It's a very logical look at the class, look at the percentage. If they don't line up, you can get reclassified, correct?
Yeah, the only time I disapprove them is if the request is not an actual reclassification request. If it's a score request, like I was accidentally scored in this division when I shot that division, that's handled a different way. So that would be disapproved. If you are, say, a 85% or whatever. Let's say you're a master and you're currently your high was 93% and you're currently at 88. I would disapprove that because both the percentiles are still within master. So, those are the only ones that get disapproved. If your current percentage is below the minimum for the class that you're currently in, I'm going to approve it. There's no reason not to. A couple of other points about this. The times that were presented to the board have been reviewed and approved. So as it stands right now, those are the times that will go into effect on January of 2025. Something to think about is that we did the analysis, but I didn't have to present it to the board when I did. We could have sat on it and waited until December and then presented it and had it approved. As it is now, you've got the remainder of the year. If you really want to move up in that class, you've got, I don't know how many weekends, we'll just say 20 plus weekends remaining in this year to class up, practice, get out there, shoot the matches and move up. And I hope you do that if that's what your goal is.
In fact, next weekend, you can go to the Area 8 Steel Challenge Championships. The weekend after that, you can go to Area 7. You can go to Colorado State, Kentucky State, Ely, not to mention all the local matches that are available out there.
Yeah.
And
I'm going to Area 2 in a couple weeks.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, you need to come down to Valdosta. Jeff and I are going to meet down there.
Yeah.
The 27th next weekend.
This coming Saturday, we're going to go shoot Valdosta.
No, not this Saturday.
No, not tomorrow.
Not tomorrow. A week from tomorrow.
Week from tomorrow. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. So, hey, y'all want to come out and gripe at us or pat us on the back in person? Come to Valdosta and shoot with us.
Maybe you shouldn't tell them where we're going to be, Zach.
I don't know. I was just thinking, Zach. Well, I guess you could edit that out, Jeff. Well, my wife has been putting pressure on me to stay in top peak physical condition or try to get in top peak physical condition. So I've been playing tennis, and we actually have a fantastic team. And we won our division, so our playoffs, we're playing Saturday and Sunday. And if we win, we're playing next Saturday. Wow. I'm not saying I hope we don't win so I can come down and see it, but I'd love to come down and shoot with you guys.
So does she look at you and go, Steve, you are the weakest link on this team?
No,
I don't think so.
Good.
Good. Yeah, I don't. At least if she does, she doesn't say it to my face.
If I were to get on the tennis court with you, you would make one serve, and I would go, I'm done. I'm done.
Yeah, I'd chase the ball, and then I'd twist my ankle. Then I'd be done.
Oh, it hurts. It hurts. I have to quit. Can I get a sub? Rodney Dangerfield from Caddyshack.
One of the things I did find out for some reason that I'm pretty competitive.
Oh, there's an understatement.
I'm out on the tennis court, and it's tough not to go like all in, like I've done in the past with shooting, a couple other things. But my girls play, and it's an opportunity for us to spend time on the court without any phones and get some physical activity and that kind of thing.
You're not going full McEnroe, are you?
No. Well, maybe that one time that I'm not that proud of. But hey, let's not get sidetracked from the main discussion here, Jeff.
This is a steel target paint podcast, not a tennis podcast.
I know. I'm about to say this is my therapy. Well, Jeff, this one time, this person hit me with the ball, and I think they did it intentional. And instead of expressing my feelings, I expressed anger. No.
Oh Lord.
So the other thing that was brought up, right? The super duper general grandmaster division, blah 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 blah.
Yes, the intergalactic GM class.
We call it the Who's Your Big Daddy class. I don't know, but with these peak times, certainly, I don't think with the changes, I don't think that's there's any talk of anything outside of our current classification system. Correct, or am I making that up?
I think if you take into account the changes that are being made, and people are willing to reclassify should they need to, they will be competing against people of like skill level, which is
Yeah.
exactly what the classification system is meant to do.
Yep.
Okay. When you start looking at, Super GM, Intergalactic GM, adding a new classification, because our biggest divisions are RFPO, RFRO, PCCO, some of the low ready divisions, you can look at that and go, people can look at it and go, look how fast these people are up at the top. There's 7 other divisions we also have to consider.
Right.
And that's why, I was talking with somebody today at the match, and we're just having a very valid conversation. And I said, the Steel Challenge has been around for over 30 years. And you had some of the biggest names in centerfire shooting the game. Some of them still are. We're now getting that type of shooter in the low ready divisions,
Yes.
where they're going to go down in Steel Challenge as some of the best ever. And that's where the changes are happening. This is why when you look at the low ready or the draw divisions, there's minimal changes except for carry optics. And people go, well, why? Well, it's a relatively new division. And for years, Zach and I looked at it and go, we don't have enough people to even make a decision. So we didn't change anything. This year, it was, I think, one or two guns short of open. And we had enough, and the algorithm identified stages that needed to be tweaked for carry optics. And so we made that recommendation. I think personally, that's what I'm seeing. I have not been around as long as Zach, and there's been others that have been around longer than him. But I know for me, seeing the maturation of how people are shooting these stages and just being blown away by the speeds that they've been able to throw down. And it's not just 1, and it's not just 2, it's not just 5. I mean, there are seniors that are crushing these stages. It's not, and it's not just kids. I hear a lot of times, oh, the kids. Well, yeah, I'm 60, so, well, Zach's not a kid, but you're a kid to me, Steve, because you're younger.
You're both kids to me. What are you talking about?
The point there is that there's a lot of people that are taking a lot of time and effort practicing, putting in the time, learning how to shoot the stages. I mean, you're going to see some of these late 50-year-olds get into senior, and some of the times are just going to be phenomenal in the senior division. It's a maturation of the game. Yep. Again, remember, you go back to 2014, RFPO and RFPR were the only ones that existed. And they were a side match. And then you start moving up, and, in 17, the last one in California, there were 300 entries. And in 18, and, oh, by the way, it was one of the first year, 2, when all the different divisions were in there. 18, it moves to Alabama, and we were over 650.
Yeah, it doubled.
It doubled
3 to 6.
And we've been in that range and high. This year was a little different. Everybody's got their own reasonings behind that. You can justify what you will, but the fact of the matter is, every division was awarded a world champion.
Yeah.
So, there was enough that was one of many success measures of the world speed shoot. But getting back to those low ready divisions, people are just, I mean, Steve, look at yourself. You spent 13 months, as I remember, to break 60.
That's a true statement.
That's not a small undertaking. That's dedication.
And you have a home range.
And that's why he got it. That's why he
Exactly.
got it, because he's got a home
That's
range.
why I'm so slow. I don't have a home range. I need to move.
I'm telling you what, though, I look back at that period of my life. Did I get burned out shooting steel challenge? Yeah, a little bit. I was shooting quite a bit. I was shooting a lot during the week, on the weekends, and I don't think necessarily my skill or ability has changed that much, but I think what happens when you have that type of goal that you're so set on it, and you go in to prove what you can do for yourself. Oh man, it's a very rewarding experience. But okay, now what do you want to do next? You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
that was just over a year, man. That was a lot of rounds for sure.
I hadn't told many people this story, but I'll tell you guys.
Okay, everybody who's listening, don't listen right now. This is only for
don't
Steve
listen.
and I.
So, Donna and I were shooting a match, and this was like the year that I was the 94.6 master, and I had like one more match where I could try to make GM. And I was up there and I was shooting my heart out trying to get it and all that. And, I heard her tell somebody, you don't want to go talk to him right now because he's not having a good day. And I heard that, and I finished this stage and all that kind of stuff. And I went back and I asked her, I said, who did you tell that to? And she said, oh, it was this person over here. It doesn't matter who the person was. But what I learned from that was that classification is not important to me. As my position in the organization and stuff like that, serving our membership and that person who wanted to come up and talk to me, that's more important than GM or any letter that I might ever earn in any division. So, from that point on, it's like, if I could shoot you, I would shoot you. But, when you do the classification update.
Classification is you, Steve, not actually shooting
I
you.
saw the tag.
YOU.
I was looking for the USPSA help line. I mean,
Yeah, no, classification as a U instead of a letter, I would do that. But, it's like, think about what your priorities are. In the end, this is a game. We love it and stuff like that, and we all want to excel at it. But you know what? 5 years from now, nobody's going to care if what you did. But just make it, keep it relative to what's really important in life.
Hey, Zach.
Hmm.
I just want to let you know I love you, man. That was beautiful.
Well, I mean,
but it really, it is a great sentiment, because I know for me, I've been very fortunate to have this podcast, to coach, to run matches, to be able to go to matches. And I mean, even today, we had a 6-man squad. It was a small match, and we had a blast, and we laughed all day. And it had nothing to do with how well people were shooting. Good or bad, we were laughing and having a good time. And it is true. And I want to add something to what you said there in Stop Chasing a Letter. And just a suggestion to those that are still motivated to try to do better. Instead of looking at trying to make the next class, do what Steve did. Steve looked at a number that he wanted to get to. He wanted to break that 60 match score. And that's what he focused on. And then he was able to break it down by going, okay, I need to do this on this stage and this on this stage. And I don't know Steve's methodology, but I'm guessing it was at a high level, something like that. Steve? Yes?
There's a blog post I put out there, I don't know, 4 years ago or something like that kind of walked at least high level people through the journey. I remember right after that World Speed Shoot, Chris Barrett and I and his dad sat down and said, hey, here's what we need to do. Here's the blueprint. We went stage to stage, and here's a number, and it's all in the article for people to look at. I looked at my current classification and so on and so forth, and use those as my personal best. And hey, if I shot at the time, I think I shot a 525 on Smoking Hope, but to break a sub 60, maybe that number was a 6 or 650, because 525 at that time, how repeatable was that? And so yeah, it was
Right.
all broken down by stage, and we trained stages until we could hit those times consistently, and that's how Chris and I broke 60 seconds.
Man, I
That's-
break 10 and I'm happy on Smoking Hope 525. Sheesh. Fast crowd, man. Fast
Now there's
crowd.
people shooting fours.
I know. And
That's SteveFosterShooting.com, right, Steve?
Yep.
For those who are interested, I just want to make sure people know how they can go and find that. You've got a lot of good blog articles up there for those that are interested. I highly recommend it. Guys, it's been almost an hour and a half, and you guys, you are two of my best friends in this game and in life. I could go on talking forever, but I don't know if I definitely know that people don't want to hear me talk anymore. So I'm going to do my best to shut up, and I'm going to say goodbye, and I'm going to let you guys finish the podcast.
What I would say, Jeff, is a couple things that I got out of the podcast. Of course, the intent around the questions and statements is to make sure that people have an understanding of how the numbers were derived, why and how. Also, to make sure that people understand the time and commitment that goes into that type of analysis, to help the sport. Certainly no intent to hurt the sport. So I appreciate you and Zach putting in the time and effort. And I appreciate you guys spending time on this podcast, because I think when people listen to it, their perspective may change a little bit. Some people will be, hey, Steve, were you serious about the paddle thing for pickleball? I don't know, but no, I appreciate you guys kind of breaking it down and going through a little bit of the history where we're at. And I know it is a thankless job from time to time. And probably the most important thing that I heard on the podcast is that I got, a special category for the World Speed Shoot that I'm going to encourage people to sign up for. Zach, is that what we're doing? I love it.
Rim Fire Revolver.
Yeah,
We'll add that as a category.
I love it. A category. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, that's one easy way to judge participation and see,
But thanks again. In all seriousness, I appreciate what you guys have gone through and from time to time put up with, and you guys are doing the best you can for the sport, and I know that I really appreciate it. It's easy for people to criticize from time to time, and it can be tough for people to get involved and make change in those kind of things. So I think you guys are doing a great job. So I sincerely appreciate all that you guys have done and will do for the sport.
Well, I know I said I was going to shut up, but thanks, Steve. That's appreciated.
Yeah, and if there's still questions that you have, then let us know what they are. Email me directly, zach@uspsa.org, and include your USPSA number so I can look up and we can talk specifics.
Fantastic, everybody. Well, thank you for listening. Zach, thanks for being on. 5th time honorary Steel podcast, Steel Target Team. I'm going to start again. Thanks for being on the podcast, Zach, for the 5th time. It's greatly appreciated. And
don't forget that code.
Yes. You want to give it to him?
ST Podcast 10.
There you go.
All right, everybody.
All right, thanks
thanks
guys.
again.
We'll see you.
All right, take care.